Sounds good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Magic is Real, the podcast where we talk about spiritually transformative experiences, such as near death experiences and other metaphysical topics. I am your host, Shannon Torrance. And if you like this podcast and if you like this episode, would you do me a favor and subscribe, comment, even if it's just a little heart? That's a way to support the podcast for free. It triggers the algorithms to get this out to more people. So thank you so much for doing that. And today I have with me Danielle Kort. I'm very excited to have her with me today. Danielle is a New Earth Ascension guide. She's the author of Wild Spirit Fire, Freedom from Fear and Separation. With over a decade of experience helping others awaken their creativity, intuition, and joy, Danielle offers a unique perspective on spiritual ascension and personal empowerment. Welcome, Danielle. Thank you so much for joining me as you are about to leave for Bali very soon.
I
And
am. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. So I would love to know right off the bat, what is, I know that you have to choose a title for what it is you do, and I'm sure it's so multifaceted, but what do you think, what is a New Earth Ascension guide to you? What kind of work
Mm,
do you do? Who do you serve? How do you serve? And then we're going to get into your origin story because I do want to hear how all of this started for you.
Beautiful. Yeah. New Earth Ascension Guide to me is really just about being a guide to those who are on the path, called to awaken to this higher dimensional reality. And for me, New Earth uh, is 5D, fifth dimension, and beyond, and we can keep going. But I know, through my own awakening process and realizations and downloads and all these things, like I know I came on a mission, as so many of us have, to basically help shepherd the collective into this, higher realm. So as a collective, we're moving from the third dimension into the fifth dimension, the fourth being a jumping off point into the fifth. And from there, so much beauty and magic and synchronicity occurs, and all the things, miracles that we talk about, because it's just a different level of understanding.
Very well said. Thank you for sharing that. So, what is it that you do in terms of serving clients?
Sure. So I work one-on-one. I've been doing this, coaching work for about a decade. So one-on-one counseling, coaching, serving my clients to, again, ascend their consciousness, move into higher states of being and living, and just manifesting these beautiful lives, basically. And then I moved from one-on-one to doing retreats in 2017. I did my first co-led my first retreat in Bali in 2017. But then COVID happened, and then I did a few things in between, which we could talk about maybe. But then I moved back into retreats last year. I did my own retreat based on my book, and we cover 7 chapters in the book through real life interactive experiences, all in this beautiful, lush, tropical environment in Bali. And yeah, so those are my main capacities at the time.
Thank you. And then, can you share a little bit about, since we only connected yesterday, I didn't have time to check out your book, but will you please share the summary of what the book is about?
Absolutely.
And we'll have a link to the book below as well, just so you know, if anyone wants to buy it.
Beautiful. So this book is really a guide to ascension, helping you learn how to move through the ascension process from the third dimension into the fifth dimension, and really moving out of the nightmare of separation and into the dream of unity consciousness. Unity consciousness, for me, is where we're all heading. And, it's not everyone being cookie cutter and the same. It's about each of us having unique, viewpoints and different, like if you're in an orchestra, right? We're different instruments. So we all come together into this beautiful harmonization. So this book talks about how we've really all come from out of the third dimension. Unfortunately, we were sort of tricked, if you will, or guided into ways of seeing the world and ourselves, which makes us feel very separate from each other, from God, source, universe, from nature, from other, from animals. And so when you feel so separate and alone, that's such a sad viewpoint, as we know. So this book is just kind of helps you to kind of unwire yourself from all of that, and go through 12 chapters, 12 different, I guess, topics, if you will, to move into higher dimensional reality, basically.
Yeah, no. What I'd love to talk about now is your origin story and how you got to this place, starting with whatever you're comfortable sharing about your background and your childhood, perhaps, and what your spiritual beliefs may or may not have been at that time. But I know
Mhm.
that there was a crucial turning point, and that's your spiritual awakening, which is very similar to mine. So I'm really looking forward to hearing it from you.
Well, let's say in childhood, I grew up Lutheran, in that kind of religious sense, although my parents weren't never too serious about religion, but that's how I grew up. And I do remember questioning it a lot and being like, what are these beliefs? Like, what about kids in Africa? They never hear about Jesus and now they're all going to hell. Like, I remember like raising my hand and like, what? And they're like, yes. I'm like, I don't believe that. And
Yeah.
so, but let's see, I think in middle school, I actually got really depressed because I was in my own mind and ancestral patterns and feeling just low self-worth. So I sort of manifested this really dark reality where it just felt like no one liked me. And I mean, obviously I didn't like me. So then that was a reflection. And I just really got down on myself to the point where I didn't see the point in living. I didn't understand my purpose or place in this world. And I really came close to committing suicide in 8th grade because I was, bullied and I didn't have friends. And it was just my peer life was really I was having a hard time. So, but luckily my mom talked me into going to a different school the next year, and I did. And I sort of coped for a while, in high school. I decided to sort of pretend like to start over and pretend like I'm confident, pretend, but it was really coping. And I had a much better high school experience, but it wasn't until my mid-20s when I really started on a healing path for what I had experienced and the traumas and all the stuff that really needed addressing.
Yeah. Thank you. I think childhood is, whether you have a beautiful family or not, it's tough anyway, just finding your way in the world, getting through middle school. Worst years of my life. I mean, some of the worst years of my life, not the worst, but really hard to find your footing. And I don't know that I know anyone who found it easy. So I'm sure maybe someone did. So then let's cut to when it was that all this started to really happen for you, when you really hit your, I would assume it's like your rock bottom moment.
Well, let's see. That was my rock bottom moment in this life. And then I learned about law of attraction when I got to New York. I graduated, well, my childhood dream as 12 years old was to become a fashion designer and move to New York City. And that's exactly what I did. I went to school in University of Nebraska, Lincoln, where I'm from. I'm from Nebraska, and actually had a pretty decent fashion school, if you can believe that. But I went there and then I went straight to New York after college. And it was 2009. The stock market had just crashed the year before, as we know, and the jobs were just more sparse. And being someone like myself who just wanted to get into the fashion industry, the odds were really stacked against me. So I was not getting a job at first because I wanted to be a designer. That was my dream. And I learned about the law of attraction through reading The Secret. And I read The Secret, and I remember I was like, yes, somehow I know this works. And I started to, manifest little things like cups of coffee and, just things that I could believe at first. And then I kept, increasing that and like basically affirming, I'm a fashion designer. I am a fashion designer. And it took about 8 months, my first year there, but I finally landed my first designer position. It was an assistant position. And I stayed in the industry for 6 years. My last place I worked was Calvin Klein, and I got to source beautiful fabrics for their bridge line at the time. And but the thing is, it's interesting. Sometimes you need to hit rock bottom, but sometimes you need to manifest everything you think you want, and then come to realize, wait a second, is this really what I want? And that's where I found myself. I didn't realize that these things, a lot of them were mixed with ego desires and, wounded parts of me. And so anyway, I came to this realization. I got everything I thought I wanted. I got into I would visualize myself getting to the red ropes of these exclusive nightclubs. I mean, everything my 25-year-old wanted.
Yeah.
I got it. I got my own apartment in Soho, loved it. But again, it was just, I hit this place of like, I'm not truly happy. So what's going on? And I read a Deepak Chopra book, which talked about the difference between fleeting happiness and soul fulfillment. And I realized that that's what I wanted, soul fulfillment. And I was like, but I don't know what my soul wants. I don't even think I know my soul. So that's where I went on this deeper journey to learn about who I truly am and what my soul wants for me. And then to, began to surrender to what this higher plan, higher vision is for my life. Get basically letting go of the need to control and be like, I want this and I want that. And it's all great. But when you surrender to like that higher part, that larger part of you, and just let that part of you guide you, and you co-create, it's not like you just give all of your power away. Like I'll get a download that says, do this, do a retreat. But my higher self's not saying this in this way and giving me exact details of everything. She's saying, go create it. But I'm giving you the green light to do this, thing overall. And when you do that, I find that everything just works out so beautifully and synchronistically and magically, like your podcast is all about.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting because same thing. I mean, I didn't start to get what I wanted just because I decided it necessarily, as much as I was not a spiritual person, really. I was agnostic, and it was going through the 12-step recovery process where I went in there being like, I'm not really this person. I don't like group activities. I don't subscribe to God in the biblical sense, which 12-step doesn't. But it's just that getting comfortable with the word God, because it's been ingrained that it has to look like this. And really, it was in 12-step taught me to let go of control and relax and trust
Beautiful.
in a higher source, right? And so now
Mhm.
when things come to me, and I'd love to talk about this too, because it's been happening lately where for years I've been trying to manifest things and there have been some challenges and blocks, right? And then in the last, I don't know, few months, I stopped actively manifesting, like the lists. I mean, I'm not saying don't do it. The lists, the hovering over a candle, focusing on the intention.
Right.
And literally, I just started having thoughts like, what if this happened? What if that happened? You know what could happen? This could happen. And all of a sudden, it was like, work started coming in. I got this incredible place in LA that I had been saying, I want to live there. 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 But this time it was like, you know what? Maybe I could live there. Maybe that would happen. And it was sort of like, it's so counterintuitive because you're like, okay, but how do I get to that state? I've done all the seeing it real, being in the end state. But then suddenly it was only when I was in the end state, just for, I don't know, a series of reasons where literally now everything I'm looking going, everything's manifesting exactly the way that I wanted it to, but without effort. And
Mm.
that's,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear you speak about that and riff on it in
Oh
whatever way
God, yeah.
seems, yeah.
It's so beautiful. Exactly. I did the same. I had the same process. It was like vision board. You got to
Yeah.
focus on the thing. You got to visualize it to make it happen. Otherwise, the universe doesn't know what you want. And I I think to some degree, it's we've put out a lot of material into our vortex, as Abraham Hicks calls it.
Yeah.
So now our higher self can work with that, and it's less efforting, I feel, for so many of us, but about, getting clear of what you want. Some people, maybe, I'm not going to say for everyone, but at some point, it's like you build this momentum, this energetic momentum, and now your higher self knows what you want. And so when you just relax and surrender and open and say, I want what you want, I want what's best for the collective, for all that is, now you're working on these higher planes and you're actually aligning with higher timelines, because that's unity consciousness. That's who we are at our higher levels, basically. And then you're really, that's your vote, right? You're asking for a more harmonious world. So that's another beautiful little tip that I like to throw in there too. But also just about surrendering, needing to do so much. And we've been so conditioned in this society to work so hard and grind away. You got to work hard to be admirable and honorable and all these things. It's just like, oof, I don't know, guys. Like that's a little much, right? And then we're just so tired and burnt out. We wonder why things aren't working. Well, we just lowered our vibration, So I'm coming back into this like real relaxation lifestyle, with spas and cold plunges and hot plunges and hot tubs and all this stuff, right? Saunas, but just relaxing. I mean, the main thing is relaxing and surrendering. And when I notice now these days, now that I do that, I'm being shown, and it feels like now my reality just seems like it's unfolding like a red carpet, and I'm just like walking onto it. It's already been created as a co-creation with my higher self and me, and whatever it is, the divine design, I call it. It's already there, and it's just about surrendering to that. And that again is like taking us on this higher trajectory. And now we're manifesting all the beauty and magic and miracles because we're not trying so hard. It's not like about trying, paddling and paddling. There's some paddling, there's some inspired action that, you get to take, but those are like those golden touches. When you hear that download, that you get that download, you sense it and you take that inspired action, that's when things really start to, fall into place, but with such ease.
Yep. It's gentle manifesting. And and I've had that happen so many times in the last few months where I just had like a passing thought. And yes, I am a psychic medium, so you could argue, well, maybe you just saw the future for a second, but there's like, huh, what would happen if I moved there? What would happen if I did this? And then I stopped even stressing about it. And I was like, it just sort of unfolded and I stopped worrying about the outcome. And I can't even really say how I got there. That's the thing. I don't know why
Mm.
I suddenly, I think because it happened once and I saw it
Mhm.
happen and I was like, oh, okay, then I don't have to stress so hard. And then it happened again. And I'm like, okay, that's more evidence that really, if I just stay, you talk about the flow, like being in the flow. So I'd love to hear you speak on that as well. It's how do we kind of, everyone's going to be different, but how do you get in the flow or how do you encourage others to be in the flow and what is the flow?
Sure. Well, you were just saying, so I'll just say, really trusting what's unfolding is such a big part of it. And I think sometimes, even with like law of attraction, some of these things, that can, it's material for the ego to be like, okay, so I want this and I don't want this. And if this happens, then I am going to be happy and everything's going to be great. And if this happens, then this is going to suck. And I want to avoid that. Right. So I'm going to try to control this whole thing and manifest only the things that I like. And when things don't happen the way I want it, now I'm going to be upset. And it's like this like roller coaster. And anyway, that's how you not be in the flow. So how to be in the flow is really about sinking into this present moment and being at one with it. And even if it's not what you prefer, even if it's challenging and hard, it's just about accepting what's happening, knowing it's happening for you, because everything does. And when you start to really relax into that kind of trust, it's like now you've got this inner peace that's kind of unshakable because it's like, what? My ego's going to try to scare me into freaking out about the future. Well, guess what? Everything happens for me. So now what, right? I'm good. I'm good no matter what. And then if you can meet the present moment with gratitude, again, no matter what's happening, now you bring gratitude to no matter what's happening. Now you're in this just beautiful dance with your universe and this larger part of you. And it's like their dance partner, and they feel you can trust them, and they're gonna, they're leading you, and you're like, yeah. And then and then you're leading. Sometimes it's a co-creative, beautiful dance. So that's how I see the flow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're in alignment with the universe. And on that note, when we're in alignment with what the universe wants for us, it's what we want. Like what we want is the same as what the universe usually wants for us, not all the time, because our ego obviously gets in the way and says, oh, I want to date that person. And you don't know that that person might be a narcissist, or I want that particular job. And it's like, what if that job is toxic, is a toxic environment? So it's kind of about letting go of the what it is, but the feeling of what you're in search of.
Right.
With that in mind, I know that our souls do choose a lot of our challenges, for example, but we also have free will. So there are some things that are meant to be, but then there are also things that where we can change course. So what in terms of manifestation, what are your thoughts about that? How much of it is within our control and how much of it are like, well, this was just going to happen to you no matter what? Um, and even as a medium, sometimes people will be like, if only I had done this and this person wouldn't have died. And a lot of times I'll hear the soul say, no, 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 I already chose this. There, literally, if I hadn't died this way, I would have died another way. It was not either, it was going to happen, whether it was this way, that way, or the other way. That's the contract I had because I needed to learn this. And also maybe you needed to learn this from my passing. So I just anything you want
Right.
to say about that?
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think before we come into this lifetime and this life stream, we choose certain challenges that are going to help us grow the most as a soul. And sometimes, yeah, and then we choose our parents, and we choose certain milestones and things, but then the rest, like you said, it's free will. And so it's kind of that, yeah, both. But I guess that's what I'll say on that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say
that's
it's
that that's
both.
great. That yeah, I kind of think it is too, and I don't know exactly how it works.
It's
I
all,
just know that after interviewing near-death experiencers, talking to dead people, and then having success with manifesting, I think I don't know the rules, but I do know that there's something there where we can choose within the soul contract. There are still different roads. It's a choose your own adventure at the same time
mhm,
because you can
mhm.
say no to that thing, you can say yes to that thing
Yeah.
without interference from the other side because we're supposed to be here to learn and figure it out. When you
Yes.
talk about, I want to hear more about unity consciousness too, and exactly what that is, or to you, what it is, what it means.
Sure. So, like I was talking about earlier, unity consciousness is sort of this beautiful realm. It's a higher realm than we've known, comparing it to like the third dimension, and where we can kind of there is more of individualization, but unfortunately, there was more conditioning around believing you're separate from other people and God and nature, and so unity consciousness is really just coming back into that not only knowing but embodiment of that connection with all that is, that oneness, that beautiful like collaborative energy where we all know that we're different pieces of this big puzzle, and we bring our unique energy and expression to the table, if you will, and then we all work together to co-create. I mean, really, I believe we're here to co-create heaven on earth, and I know it's possible, and that's what I feel like I'm here to help assist with as a new Earth Ascension guide, is to really anchor in new Earth, that heavenly reality, and go from there. Because once you've really done a lot of your healing work, with the trauma and all the stuff that we went through to get to this higher realms, then it really is just about creativity. We're such creative beings that it's so fun. I mean, what else, right? Like we get to create a life that we love and a collective reality that we just absolutely adore. And that's our birthright. And I feel like that's really why so many of us have come.
Yeah, and then there's so much horrible stuff happening in the world that we're all aware of. And do you think that I know that I'm hopeful, and I know you are too. Do you think it's possible that we can ever get to this? Hate to be, I always try to stay hopeful, but it's like probably not in my lifetime, is how I feel. I like to think differently, but I'm also like, how are we ever going to get everyone on board when people are so wounded and indoctrinated and traumatized? And I mean, I would assume it's just one person at a time, be the change you wish to see. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, can we get there? Can we get everyone on board, please?
I would love to get everyone on board. I think we all would.
Yeah.
I've heard so many different ways of it being explained, and one thing that does resonate with me is, and I think it's Bashar that talks about this, where there's parallel earths or realities, but they're not just realities; they're like actual different earths that you tune into, and different realities you're tuning into every microsecond. I mean, like so much every little bit, and it depending on your vibration, depending on your consciousness and what you're attracting. Basically, you're tuning into different earths. And there is a 5D earth where the oceans are beautiful and purified and clean. And it's there now. My understanding, because like the paradoxes come in, right? In the fourth dimension, that's when you're like, wait, what? This is true, but this can also be true.
Uh-huh.
But what I'm understanding is that as we tune into those versions by focusing our awareness, not by staring at the drama and what's happening, like not voting on that because you're putting all of your energy into that and freaking out, like voting for the new earth reality. Now that vote is helping to crystallize it, is my understanding. So the more of us that keep focusing on new earth and anchoring heaven on earth, the more that becomes into a more, what do you want to call it? Like a solid reality, basically.
Yeah, I love that. That makes so much sense to me. That actually, it's us shifting into that timeline or that dimension rather than trying to recruit everyone in the world to think the same way, which is never going to happen. But it's kind of like if we can sort of manifest and meet and raise our vibration to meet that parallel reality, then we
Yeah.
can kind of, I mean, in a way, it's time jumping, which is
Yeah.
like jumping into a new reality. And hey, maybe there are people like the leftovers, where it's like, hey, until you want to jump over into this one, we'll be over here and you can still be in your darkness over here. I really like to think that, not in any kind of, oh, we're better than anyone, but just when you wake up or when you have that spiritual awakening, that you'll see it.
Right.
I keep
Right.
just
And
wishing everyone would have a near-death experience. Not everyone, but
yeah, totally.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and belief systems are only held together by all of the collective beliefs. So when people start to pull out of those belief systems, now it just starts to crumble and go away. So it's the same thing with these realities that we're vibrationally creating and aligning with, and then making them become more crystallized.
Yeah. One of the things you also talk about is intuition, right? I'd love to hear about that too, in terms of how can we trust our intuition? What is our intuition? How does it guide us? How do we tap into that more?
Sure. There's different ways that our higher self talks to us or communicates with us, and that I mean, this is the way I describe it. Our intuition is, being tuning into that larger part of us and being able to understand what's being communicated, and then you can, take action from there if guided, or maybe there's just vision. So there's the different clairs. There's different ways to sense that inner guidance, that intuition. I don't know if I'm going to get them all. Clear
I can help.
audience.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
I just want to say clear audience
I
is
teach
seeing.
mediumship, so
Oh,
yes.
beautiful.
But I'll
And
let you take it and then I'll just fill in the blanks.
sure. Oh no, I said it wrong. Clairvoyance is
Mm-hmm.
seeing, right?
Yep.
Clear audience is hearing.
Clairgustance.
Clairsentience,
Yep. Feeling.
feeling, right? Clairgustus is the smelling, I think,
Smelling,
right?
yeah.
And then
Clairgustians,
what?
claircognizance,
Yes,
which is clear
claircognizance,
knowing.
knowing. Got it.
And
It's a
then
fun
I
game.
think, yeah, oh, we got clairaudience, all of our senses. Um,
Tasting. I don't remember
taste,
that one.
that one's
That
gustience.
is. And then know
Yeah.
what's smelling then?
And then that one is, I think that goes along with it, maybe,
Okay.
because
There
it's
might
taste and
be.
smell. Yeah. And
Cool.
then we see with our mind's eye, we hear with our sort of our mind's ear, and we feel sentience is how we feel. Like, I just feel like this person
Yes.
really felt this way. And claircognizance is, I don't know how I know it. I just
But I just
know
know
that you
it.
grew up in Nebraska if you hadn't told me already. So you're
Yes.
right. Yes, all those.
Yes. Yeah. And so we use these senses, basically to, yeah, be able to tune in and go with those extra sensory abilities, basically,
Hmm.
and be able to let it guide our life. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think so many humans just stuck in this 3D realm, we question ourselves all the time. We're constantly second guessing ourselves or having imposter syndrome, or we just forget who we are. Like as kids, we come out just fresh and like ready. And I mean, we just come out like pure little beings that then are sort of molded by their experiences and
Mhm.
going into this world that feels so unpredictable because it is, and so unsafe. And then suddenly we're like, am I right about that? And then over time, you start to learn to trust yourself more. But it takes, at least for me, it took decades.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And you know why? Is because we're conditioned from a young age to give our power away to authorities, teachers, parents. They always know better. They always know better. We were really truly taught that. That's just not the way I would raise a kid.
Right.
And I think a lot of the conscious parenting, that movement right now is all about, just helping them trust themselves from a young age and even asking them to tell you stuff, let them feel empowered, like they know a thing or two so that they're not always looking around like, Who can I ask? Can I confide in my mom or my best friend? And that's fine to get support sometimes, but you don't want to live your life based on your mom's opinion or your best friend's opinion. You want to live your life based on your own inner guidance, because no one knows what's best for you than you. You're the only one, meaning in relationship to your higher self, the one who really has that bigger picture and knows what's best for your life.
So true. Can you think of any examples in your own life where you either didn't trust your intuition or you figured it out later that if I'd only listened, like I knew that, why didn't I listen to that? And how it led you to a different place? I know that's kind of a vague question, but I'm sure there are examples of where you didn't speak up or you didn't listen or you didn't embrace your own power
Yeah.
and what either what you learned from that or if there's an example of that.
Well, I just remember one time, this is an interesting one because it was like a very fleeting thing, but I remember I was working at Calvin Klein at the time, and my roommate also worked in the marketing department there. Anyway, but that's besides the point. The point is, we were talking about how do we get ourselves out of this 9 to 5 job, because actually we were really burnt out. And we're like, maybe we could start an online marketing thing. And I can barely remember what it was, but it was just some idea that we sort of came up with in our own, like a brainstorming session. And I remember like just pushing ahead and trying to make it work and trying really hard and doing and it just wasn't working. And I think that's one of the first times I was starting to realize, okay, maybe pushing's not going to be the way. And I was just starting to learn about intuition, inner guidance, and trying to tune in and see what you're guided to do. So it was around that time that shortly thereafter I started to shift into, okay, I'm not going to try to force things to happen anymore. Like, I know I could come up with a lot of fun, cool ideas and maybe even be a little excited about it, but I'll be most passionate and excited and most in alignment with what my higher self has to say about this.
Hmm. Yep, definitely. Are you a meditator?
Yeah, I am. I used to
Yeah.
meditate more, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an everyday meditator, but what would you say, if that is something that you encourage people to do, what would you say are the benefits of that, at least for you? Or why would you encourage someone to explore meditation practice?
Meditation is super important to be able to clear out the monkey mind. And so many of us, have come from, like, there's just so many messages in the world. There's advertisements, there's all these, things. And then if your mind gets going, running and running and running, and different parts of you are talking, and it's just so jumbled in there, then, I mean, for one, you cannot tune into that higher guidance, right? Because it's all, so like chit chatter in there. And my book talks about an example of like being in a loud, noisy restaurant or maybe a party or something, and people are, talking and glasses are clinking, and you're trying to give a message to your higher self on the other side of the room, and they just can't hear because it's so crowded in there. So tuning all of that noise out, as much as you can to quiet it down, now you're able to communicate with that larger part of you and be able to hear the messages he or she has to say, they have to tell you, or to be able to pray or ask or talk to them, in this quiet space. And really, for me, it's just about creating like a sacred space where you're, because, well, for me, meditation is really about connecting with that large part of you, your higher self. And to do that, I'm all about ceremony. So creating a beautiful, quiet, sacred space to be able to commune with that part of you. And that's what we're doing, and my book talks about, is we are connecting with that part of us, we're channeling that part of us. So my book's channeled, it's what my higher self, brought through. We channel for a while, and then we were beginning to embody that larger part of us. We're housing our soul in our bodies, basically, but we have to clear it all out in order to be able to let that higher vibrational light in, the light of our soul. But just going back to meditation, I guess I'll just say it's kind of the same process. It's, clearing all that out so you can be in alignment and in tune with that higher voice, that larger part of you, and eventually embody that your soul.
Mm.
It's
Yeah, that's
called soul
beautifully said.
embodiment. Yeah.
Oh, soul embodiment. I like that. I just wanted to see. Oh, yeah. And then the other thing, I wanted to ask you about is your take on harnessing creativity for transformation. What does that mean, and how do you do it, and how do you encourage your clients to do it?
Harnessing creativity for transformation. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's what I said.
Harnessing creativity. Well, okay.
And that can go along with that can go along with the emphasis on playfulness and fun that,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah, that
so
I
kind of
love.
it's all kind of comes to it's all the same thing, I think, is
Yeah,
allowing ourselves to
yeah,
be expressive and creative and have a good time and not be so in this rigid productivity mindset that I know
yes,
I'm in a lot of the time.
yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, yes. So, I mean, one thing I love to do with clients and I recommend to people is art therapy.
Yeah.
And, just, I mean, this was a couple years ago, but I had just broken up with my boyfriend at the time. And I was really feeling heavy, like really heavy, a lot of heavy emotions and needed to cry, but I don't think I was even, I was having a hard time. And I just went into this room and I had my markers and I took them out and I just started going, just and with different colors and just kind of crazy, just all over, but it felt so good and it felt amazing. So and now I have this flow of energy moving. And then at some point I start to experience, yeah, this like weeping. And the weeping is like this 16-year-old girl inside of me. And I'm not controlling this at all. It's just coming and I just keep going and the energy's moving and I'm crying. And she's just saying, I just wanted to know why. I just wanted to know why. And I was just witnessing this whole thing, from this higher place too. And I knew that it was the pain, the trauma that I went through as a 16-year-old, getting my heart broken because my boyfriend, we broke up and I didn't understand. I don't know why. He never told me why. And it was so painful. And now, fast forward to a couple years ago, I'm mid-30s and I break up with my boyfriend and it's triggering that old thing. Well, it was so beautiful because it was fun. It felt good to do it in this creative way and all the colors and then but it was like such a healing portal as well. So I do
Yeah.
love like creativity, yeah, in order to because transformation can be fun and can be like it can be like a nice release, doing it in a kind of a fun way.
I agree because I think a lot of people resist, for example, when they suffer with addictions, and I've had especially men, and I say that with no disdain. It's just the way that I actually think men need more support in that realm of being
Mhm.
vulnerable and not being afraid to share their hearts and to bond with other men, especially, um, but also just to open up and not feel shame around their own fears and not to see it as a weakness, but just to be vulnerable. And
Mhm.
a lot of times I've spoken with men who are struggling and I've said, listen, 12 step for me was like completely life-changing
Mhm.
and I was resistant to it. And they're like, no, that's not for me. I'm like so many of
Mhm.
important men in my life have been like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to try to manage and control it, which is like that that thing. And
Toxic masculine kind of
toxic
thing.
masculinity, and it's because they're so afraid of what they're going to feel when it
Mhm.
comes up. And
Right.
what I just want to emphasize too is that from you can go in there in a lot of pain in any kind of therapy. I'm not even saying it has to be that. And it hurts. It's gonna hurt because you're facing something that you've been fighting off, you've been escaping from your whole life. But honestly, for me, recovery was like, I don't want to say fun. It was kind of fun. It was, of course, I'm a connector. So for me, being vulnerable is I love it. I want to connect with
Yeah.
other and with other women especially, but
Yeah.
and my gay friends and my, male friends, but I think it's like actually it was the most I had such a beautiful experience in recovery. It
Mhm.
was only
Mhm.
exciting. It was only like, let's meet in the park and go over and let's talk about like get all this stuff out. And whether it's art therapy or other modalities, like it doesn't have to be like hard work. It might bring up some really hard stuff,
Mhm.
but that's the beauty because then you get to let it go. And so I love your idea. I'm not really a
Yeah.
crafts person. Like, I don't
Yeah.
like doing, let's draw out your feelings. I'm always, or collage it. It's just not me.
Yeah.
But like you said, it could be anything. It could be like
Mhm.
exercise. It could be like movement. It could be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's only hard when we resist it. So if we
Yep,
can come to the place where we're just let it, surrender and let it move through. It only takes a few minutes normally to just let the emotions flow through. And like I said,
exactly.
it can be done in so many ways, but I do,
Yeah.
yeah.
And why do, I mean, I know there are a million reasons, but I would just love to know about your clients and why, what are some of the reasons that people might come to you?
A lot of people come to me, it seems, when they're just ready to start to really love themselves. And like that in itself is like such a key to so much transformation because, when you really genuinely love yourself, you start to receive those reflections in your day-to-day life and everything just gets more beautiful. So that's one reason. There's plenty of others. I'd say that's like the main one though.
Yeah, because you talk about living a life of unconditional love.
Yes.
And what is that and how do we do it?
Well, unconditional love means, you don't have any conditions in the way of just loving someone or yourself fully without any bounds. You're just someone might, like a mom could say, well, I'll love you if you clean up your mess. That's conditional love, right? And that's what we're really more used to from like the third dimensional playground, if you will. Not always,
Mhm.
but we all had experiences of, a parent or a brother or sister, like where they didn't have the space, they didn't have the capacity to love you beyond the conditions. So
Yeah,
unconditional love, yeah, goes beyond all of that. It loves you no matter what. And from my understanding, that's available once you're in the fifth dimension and then you anchor that way in that
that's what I was going to
yeah.
say is
Mm,
that when people share their near-death experiences, the main message and the main feeling is unconditional love like they've never felt before, that
mm.
there's no judgment, there's no hate, there's no resentment, there's no
Right.
guilt. So many times my clients will say, "Is he mad at me because I didn't do this?" And I always answer, "Look, I'm not, even if he didn't tell me this, I can tell you this for sure that spirit does not harbor hate, shame, guilt. That's the thing. We're freed from that when we cross over. Even if you have a painful life, or even if you have a life review where it shows things that were painful, you're not being judged on them. You're
Mhm.
just observing. And if we can take that into our own lives where it's less judgment, more observing. Oh, I see what I did, how I did that. I wonder why I did that. Rather than beating yourself up and making yourself feel like you're a not worthy person because you didn't do something that was in alignment with your higher self. Welcome
Yes.
to being a person.
Yes, yes. And there's
Yeah.
so much more gentleness and grace that we start to give ourselves as we awaken and realize that's the attitude of our soul or higher self. There's just so much. It's okay. And it's all okay. It's just like, look at the collective and it's all like, we're just beating ourselves up. It's so hard on ourselves. And it's just like, no, it's okay, everyone. Like you're doing a great job. Like give yourself that grace.
Yeah. And what's going to happen in Bali?
Yeah, so I'm super excited. We're doing a week-long transformational experience coming up in Ubud, Bali, which is one of the most spiritual places I've ever been. It's so cool. There's so many energy healers, and we'll go to see two different energy healers, one being a water priestess, where she does a water purification ceremony on us, and she'll just dump water over your head. The second time I did it, my whole body turned to fire because it was so powerful and potent. And then we also go see the energy healer from Eat, Pray, Love, the one the character was based off of.
Hmm.
We'll go, into nature. We do all sorts of different workshops. I have a bunch of different facilitators come lead different workshops depending on the group's needs. So it's a very bespoke experience and a luxurious experience. And so we stay in a five-star luxury hotel, and we're held in this higher vibrational energy for a full week because we're so supported by the ancestors of the land and the our star family. It was beyond phenomenal last year, so we had such great feedback, and so I just know it's going to be even more special this year.
Yeah. When you came back from there, what were, what thing, I mean, I know that you already are on the journey and you're facilitating these retreats, but what were or or is even just one thing that you took away that you didn't even, something you learned that even you thought, I thought I knew it all, but then I came back and totally mind blown and had this, what transformed for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I came back from this last trip because, like I was telling you, I had gone the first time in 2017. I lived there for almost a year in Ubud, and then I went back this last year. And I just was reminded again, once I got to Bali, she just backed me on my ass in a good way, right? But
Yeah.
in a loving way. And she's like, "What are you doing, girl? What are you doing? You're running around again. You're getting stressed. That's
Yeah.
not the way to come into a retreat. That's not going to help you get things done more efficiently. You know that." And she was talking to me. I'm like, damn, I forgot. Like, it's been too long. And she's really
Yeah.
there to, Mama Bali is like a womb. She's in, she really helps you surrender into your divine feminine and relax, and she'll freak out and, just be more present, and be more present with the people around you. And remember that that's the point. The point is not all the achievements and the to-do lists and getting things done so that you can then be glorified. Or I don't know what our ego, sometimes our egos do funny things that just really, you're missing the point. And Bali brought me back into that alignment, helped me remember to just slow down, breathe, be present. And that is actually what gets me into my pleasure. And probably so many of us, and don't we want to be in that pleasure and bliss? Like, that's the name of my retreat, is, Wild Spirit Fire Bali Bliss Retreat. And there's a reason for that, because it's designed to help slow you down, to be able to surrender to that bliss, which comes in a higher vibration. But the higher vibration doesn't come from running around trying to get everything done, you know what I mean? Like in your head, it's about being, like, slowing down and being more present.
Yeah. For better or for worse, we, at least in the United States, are in a capitalistic society. And so we do have high expenses. We do have to hustle. We are in that matrix of, well, we don't have to. But we hustle. We're like, I got to pay the rent. I got to pay the bills. I got to do, and like, I've been guilty of workaholism where I'm like working 4 jobs a day and I'm not relaxing at night. I'm just hitting the pillows, starting again. And it's like, oh my God, fear of lack, fear of lack. What if I can't pay the bills? What if and we get so into, I've
Mhm.
gotten sick. Like for years, I was
Mhm.
very sick from the stress of it all.
Right.
And only now have I just learned, hey, literally, money is not why we're here. Money's a concept. It is important. And I'm saying that from a place of, privilege where I have enough to have a roof over my head and to be fed well and to have a nice life. And also, it's important to remember that we are human first. We are souls first, rather, but we're in human bodies that are here to have an experience, and we're here to
Mhm.
connect with other people. We're here to love. We're here to learn. And so this is why I love what you're doing, because even if it's a yoga class, take the time out
Mhm.
every day to just be
Yes, to
instead of
just
do,
be right.
instead of doing. Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask what it is off the top of your head, what is it that you want people to know? Just a general overall, what do you want people to know?
That you are so loved and adored and applauded by the higher realms, and you're doing a great job. You're doing a beautiful job. Just
Yeah.
keep going. Just keep going, and take time to give to yourself, to just be, like we were saying. Take time to just slow down and be, and just know that you're worthy of that space and time to relax. And yeah, feel that love all around you. It's right here. Just tune into it.
Thank you so much, Danielle Kort, for spending time with me today and for your beautiful messages. I wish you a beautiful trip to Bali, and I will have all of your links below if anyone would like to work one-on-one with Danielle or join a retreat in the future. So, I just want to thank you so much for being on Magic is Real and being your beautiful self, and for being one of those people that is putting that love, that divine love, that unconditional love out into the world to help us all reach, hopefully, that new earth state of mind.
Thank you so, so much. Such a
Thank
pleasure.
you.